Alright, so I've got a lot of requests for this recently. So yeah, here it is. The Mech tier list. Apparently the first one to have Hemlock in it. I know Desync did one recently, and apparently it did not include Hemlock. So, yeah. I believe it's been around long enough, and I've used it enough to where I can pretty confidently speak on it. I think we're just going to go from left to right, starting at the top here. So, Aegis. Got the rework. Starting off strong. Definitely S tier. Because it is in the top 5 for sure. I might arrange these in terms of like best to worst, for also, again, from left to right. For now, this is going to be the only one there. However, it will not be the absolute best mech, I don't believe. Arachnos. I'm going to give it a C. It's not quite a D because when you get it, at least it is very useful. And it's going to be probably your best mech for at least a little while. So it does deserve at least that much. Ares. Solid B. Unfortunately, it does kind of lose value fairly quickly. I think when you get to like tier 5, tier 6 in the gear hub, then Ares is not really usable anymore, at least not in any great sense. Bastion. I'm going to give it an S. It is not necessarily top 5. It might end up being top 5. But, yeah, I think it's definitely good enough to where you're not going to regret running a Bastion. So there's that much to be said. A Brick House. It's not as bad as people think it is, right? So it's not like a C or a D. And since it's only credits, it's not super difficult to acquire either. So I'm going to give it a solid B. I believe that it is better than Ares, for sure. Now, you could use it as like a mortar platform or with like, I don't know, something else to kind of stay back. But it's not bad with some other weapons as well. I know people who use it, one person anyway, who uses it with Disc Launcher primarily, and it is very good. You know, it does a lot of damage, so it's pretty crazy. Cheetah. I'll be honest, I'm gonna give it a D because I don't think it's even worth purchasing. It's that bad. The mines are decent, I guess, but there's very few situations in where you're actually going to get great use out of the mines. It requires you to not only place them in a high traffic area, but also like get there and then place them and then theoretically get out with your life, you know, hopefully without just immediately dying and then hoping someone else comes by and steps on it. It's one of those things where your ability will almost never deal any damage, and if it does, you probably already died. It's probably because you threw down your mines as you were, you know, in the process of getting destroyed by some other mech. Eclipse. Definitely top 5. I would argue better than both of those. I'm going to keep these the way that they are. Eclipse is the counter to Panther. Well, it is a counter to Panther. It's a counter to Bastion. It's a counter to Surge. It is a counter to a lot of things. And the ability is just, it's crazy. Really short cooldown, really long duration. And it's super fast, and you know, it's fairly weak, but I think it's actually stronger than Surge in HP, potentially? I don't remember. Stronger or weaker, but it's not the same, I don't think. Gatecrasher is a bit of a sleeper, honestly. I want to put it in A, just like based on how, like, just the infrequency of people using it. But honestly, I'm gonna put it S because it's really, really good. The stats are insane. But you know, you're not gonna get something great just by stats alone. The ability has to be able to carry a big part of the mech, just like any other mech. The ability is a major part of it. And if you can get good with it, Gatecrasher can do some pretty crazy things that no other mech can do, and that makes it very, very valuable. It's not necessarily the best with like a multitude of weapons, but you know, people don't really use a multitude of weapons anyway. Guardian, I'll be honest, I'll give it an A because it is good, but it's also so overrated. Like people give it way more credit than it kind of deserves, to be honest. Hemlock, I won't put it in S because even though it is undeniably the best 2v2 mech, it's also not nearly as effective in like 5v5 or CPC, especially not very effective in free-for-all. So I will put it in A, but it is very good. The infinite stun on a single enemy is insane. It's crazy. Juggernaut, I will put it in C, and it's kind of obviously not great, but when you get it, you know, it's uncommon. It's not bad. It'll carry you through the tier that it's in. So you're not really gonna regret buying it unless it costs a bunch of Acorns. I actually don't even know anymore. They changed the price on a bunch of things. So what? How about this? How about this? If you know what Juggernaut costs in the Gear Hub, then leave a comment and let me know. Killshot, easy B, I'd say, better than both of those. It's got to be the easiest mech to learn how to use. So like when you pick it up, it's going to easily carry you pretty far. It's not like the absolute best, but just having mobility makes it better than Brickhouse, I would say. And it's epic, so it's not like it's gonna lose value really quickly like any rare mech would. Lancer, I mean, there is a particular mod in my Discord server that's going to hate me for this, but I'm sorry, it's a D. It's not even worth upgrading. Like it's barely worth using. The only reason you have it is because it's part of like the game tutorial or whatever. It's the energy capacity is so low, and you're not going to get anywhere with it. It's never going to deal any decent damage unless you spend tons of resources upgrading it, and it's a common mech. So it's going to lose value immediately. Immediately you get access to better stuff, to like uncommon rare stuff. It's just not even worth it, dude. MD, solid C, because I know that it can be fairly effectively used up until like, you know, maybe tier 6, tier 5, tier 6. You can get some decent usage out of like the team healing, but it's it's not ideal. And I would put it after Juggernaut because again, 16 maximum energy is brutally low. You're not going to deal pretty much any damage with that. Nomad, I'm going to give it an S, honestly. And I'm going to give it better than Gatecrasher for the mobility factor and also the fact that it is a very solid counter to snipers, is a very solid counter to Aegis, is a very solid counter to Panther, and even kind of Eclipse to a fair extent as well. It suffers a lot against EMP, so I'm actually not going to put it above Bastion. Otherwise, I would. And there's the reason that's an issue though is a lot of mechs have EMP. Bastion and Surge are two very, very common mechs that have EMP, and that kind of that can really ruin a Nomad's day. Onyx, Arguably, I should put it in S, just because if I gave Gatecrasher an S, then Onyx probably should have it too. I consider them both to be pretty equal in terms of performance. Obviously, you don't use them for the same thing. There are, I would argue, a smaller variety of weapons that you can put on Onyx to make it work well. However, it does stupid damage. It really does, and it's hilarious every single time. Orion is not a mech that I see people use a lot, but I'm actually going to put it in A. I believe that it is one of the best medium mechs in terms of... Well, it's obviously the best medium mech in terms of DPS, just because that's what the ability is. And so, yeah, you slap something on it and it's gonna go crazy. Arc Torrent Orion is is a build that I have an unreasonable amount of pleasure using. So yeah, it's really good. Also Railgun, it's disgusting. I feel like players don't give it I feel like it's one of those things that players don't give it enough credit. Honestly, I might even swap these. I would say that Orion probably is overall better than Guardian. And that might be a controversial opinion, but I think Orion's just useful for more things. And useful against players, even. People might say that... Some people might think that it's not very useful, but I would say that if you play it well, it really is. Guardian relies pretty much entirely on the ability range implant that almost nobody has because it's really difficult to get. I don't have it. And yeah. So I would consider both of these better than Guardian, to be honest. Panther. Definitely S. Whether or not it is better, I would say that it is worse. It's better than everything else, but it is worse than Eclipse. I think Eclipse is better in more modes. It's really good in control points, in 5v5 and 2v2, in free-for-all. Every single mode you'll see an Eclipse. Not so much for Panther. 5v5 and CPC, yes. Free-for-all and 2v2, not so much. For that reason, I'm going to put it just above Aegis, just below Eclipse. The ability serves similar purpose to Aegis. You can still fire through it. I think really it's just the stasis of the barrier. I know it's... I always say don't ever get the stasis implant for it because it's pointless, and it kind of is. But the stasis effect does make it more difficult for like a Nomad or a Surge to rush past the barrier and quickly kill you. There's nothing really stopping them with an Aegis Dome, but at least for the Panther Barrier, it does at least kind of slow them down. Plus, it's not going to go down early like an Aegis Dome potentially could. You get multiple enemies, and Aegis Dome's actually not going to last long. However, if you can make it work, though, it's really, really good. Paragon... I'll call it a C just because the energy capacity is pretty decent. And you can at least use it for like javelin racks or even like nade launchers or mortars or something like that. Right? And I would put it above Juggernaut and MD, to be honest. A lot of mechs, honestly, they're kind of screwed if you get caught out in the open anyway. So the HP isn't a big deal, but having the extra mobility along with 32 maximum energy makes it pretty decent, I would say. Puma. Everybody thinks he's terrible. However, I would say it's probably better than Ares. The shield, if I'm not mistaken, has more HP than an Ares shield. It has more energy than Ares does. However, it would have a bit less HP is the only drawback. I think they're the same. Actually, no, Puma's slightly faster, 2 kph faster than Ares. Ares is 18, I believe, and Puma is 20. So yeah, I would... Honestly, it's not bad, and it's going to get you through a lot of the early tiers. So, you know, for as for as much as people kind of like to hate it, it's not terrible. Redeemer is pretty massively overhyped, I'll be honest. To a point where I kind of don't even want to put it in A. A lot of people use it, but they only use it with snipers. I'm going to put it in B. And I'm only going to put it in front of Killshot because screw Killshot. Redox. D, not even worth purchasing. Don't. And it's going to be at the very back because it's extremely expensive and it's extremely useless too. So, yes. Scorpius, I will grant, is not as good as Gatecrasher or Onyx, which is sad, but it is actually pretty good. I would probably put it below Guardian, sadly, for as much as I think Guardian's kind of overhyped. Scorpius is not the best, but it is very mobile, and the ability is actually very useful. The only issue is, you know, it's a bit weak, and Guardian's ability is just, you know, a bit more useful. Sentinel is not bad. I will go on record saying that. I know that everybody thinks it sucks, but like you really just have to get used to how to use it. It's one of those things that you can't really use it like the other tanks. You don't go rushing in. It is not a forward tank like Bastion. You know, Bastion's like the aggressive one. Aegis is kind of like a sort of passive tank. You're not going to go up in someone's face and drop the dome on them because that defeats the purpose. And then, you know, Sentinel is just kind of, you know, the next stage back where it's a non-aggressive tank. You can stay by cover. You can just like continually come out every like 5 seconds if you get low HP. As max though is the thing. And only because it's only really useful at max, I'm actually going to put it below Redeemer, which is very sad. Redeemer is also mostly useful at max. However, it still can be used to a similar effect before you get it to max. Sentinel, not so much. Shadow, sadly, is kind of in the same boat as MD. I'm going to put it below MD because I feel like the healing on MD is what makes it unique, and that's what makes it valuable. You know, that's what puts it in the C tier rather than D. Shadow is just kind of... It can be fun, but it's not going to be terribly effective. Slingshot is probably arguably better than Arachnos, but I wouldn't say that it's so good that I'd put it above Ares or even close to Ares, right next to it anyway. So yeah, I think I'm going to put it just above Arachnos here. Stalker is very nice, and you can use it. I would say that it definitely deserves a B spot, above Puma, but below Brickhouse. People like to say that Stalker is just a better Brickhouse because it heals itself and also it's more mobile. However, you get the team boost with this, which I know, Everybody plays like they're the only, you know, the only mech on the field. Nobody's helping anyone else. However, the HP difference between a brick house and a stalker is massive, to a point where, like, even at my level, where everybody's got like max double EM whatever's, like, if you can drop a brick house, you can actually tank a shot most of the time. You really can't with a stalker. So it does kind of depend on the weapon. However, I would say arguably brick house is a little bit better than stalker. Surge, definitely S. Definitely in the top 5. Probably below Panther and Aegis, to be honest. Possibly controversial opinion. Normally, it would be in the top 3, but I think the rise of Aegis, just in general, I think it kind of stole its spot, honestly. I'm gonna put it in 4, number 4. Tengu is another light mech, right? And it's rare, so it loses value fairly quickly. It's not exactly worth upgrading. However, the ability is very useful in that it deals damage and it provides you stealth. So I'm actually going to put it in B, probably even above Ares and honestly even Puma. Zephyr isn't great. It's probably nice when you get it, because, you know, at least it has a medium energy capacity, so when you get it, it has 16 energy, you can put double whatever 8s on it, probably Missile Rack 8. The mobility, though, is pretty bad. The HP is also pretty bad. However, when you get it, it's also not terrible, because it's one of the first epics you get access to. So I would say that it's worth buying Zephyr. However, it's not really worth upgrading it. So I will put it probably here, above Tengu, but below Stalker. And yeah, honestly, that's probably the way that I will keep it. I didn't necessarily spend hours thinking about this beforehand and figure out where I want everything, but that is more or less the order that I would have everything in. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about this ranking. I know some people are going to disagree with me on certain points, and if you want to rank these yourself, I have a link to this specific tier list thing with all of these images in the description, and if you make a video, feel free to tag me in it. Would love to watch that. But yeah, that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.